If you're in grad school, I'm willing to bet you've been told to follow your passion, right? Well, what if that's actually the worst advice you could possibly get? Today, we're going to tear that myth apart. We're going to dive into the real science of motivation and give you a practical toolkit for actually building a passion for your research that's going to last. So let's start with a little reality check.
Okay, first things first, let's get real about the stakes here. Research shows that roughly half, that's 50%, of all doctoral students never actually finish their programs. That number is just staggering. And it's not because they aren't smart enough. No way. It's usually because the motivation, that fuel in the tank, just runs completely empty.
And the main culprit? It's often burnout. Now, what's so powerful about this definition is that it's not just about being tired. It's an erosion, the slow creeping process where that energy and excitement you once had just sours into cynicism. If that sounds even a little bit familiar, believe me, you are not alone.
But what if this whole crisis isn't some kind of personal failure? What if the real problem is that we've all been sold this really flawed idea of what passion even is? We're told to go find it, like it's some buried treasure we just have to dig up. But, the evidence suggests that's exactly backward.
And that brings us to the first really big idea we need to tackle, the passion myth. We're taught that you have to be passionate before you can even start doing great research. But what if passion isn't the cause of great work at all? What if it's the effect?
So, here's the crucial point, the thing we've all been getting wrong. The myth says you start with passion. But the reality? Passion is the reward. It's what you get for making progress, for feeling competent, for actually taking ownership of your work. It's an outcome, you see, not an input.
Okay, so if passion is a side effect, then what's the cause? How do we build what we can call the motivation engine? Well, luckily for us, there's a really powerful psychological theory that gives us the actual blueprint. It's called self-determination theory, or SDT for short. And it's this beautifully simple but really profound idea that all of us as humans have three core psychological needs. And when these needs are met, that deep internal motivation doesn't just happen, it flourishes. And here they are. It's autonomy, the feeling that I have a say in what I'm doing. Competence. Hey, I'm actually getting good at this. And relatedness. I'm not in this alone. I'm connected to other people. When you start designing your grad school work to feed these three needs, you are actively building the foundation for real, lasting passion. This cycle here shows how it all just works together. See, when you feel autonomous and competent, your motivation gets a huge boost. That motivation then drives your behavior, the actual work, and that work leads to achievement, which then feeds right back and makes you feel even more competent. It's this powerful, self-sustaining loop. All right, let's get practical. How do we kickstart that cycle? Well, for most grad students, the easiest way in is by focusing on the need for competence. So let's zoom in on how to build that incredible feeling of mastery. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? I mean, think about it. Do you love playing a sport you're just terrible at? Or an instrument you can't get a single good note out of? Probably not, right? The joy comes from getting better. And it is the exact same thing with your research.
So here's an actionable strategy for you, the mastery loop. Instead of getting overwhelmed by your whole thesis, just focus on mastering one small, tangible skill. Become the lab expert on that one piece of software or that one specific analysis. The second you stop fighting with how to do the work, you free up all this mental energy to get excited about what your work actually means.
A PhD is a marathon of delayed gratification, right? You might not see a big, satisfying win for months, maybe even years. And this just starves your brain of the little dopamine rewards it needs to stay motivated. The antidote? Micro-victories. You have to start manufacturing small, daily wins.
So forget your to-do list for a second. I want you to start a to-do list. At the end of every single day, write down what you accomplished, no matter how tiny it seems. Look at these examples. Formatting 5 citations, reading 1 paper, getting 1 single piece of code to run. These aren't huge breakthroughs, but they are proof of progress. And these are the small dopamine hits that keep that motivation engine of yours running.
Okay, so building competence and being curious, that's great. But that same curiosity can also become a massive trap. It is so easy to get lost down these endless information rabbit holes, which feels really productive, but is actually just a sneaky form of procrastination.
Oh, I'm sure many of you are going to recognize this one. Some people call it obsessive article collecting syndrome. You know the drill. You spend hours finding the perfect papers, your download folder is swelling with hundreds of PDFs, and you never actually read them. You get hooked on the dopamine rush of the hunt, not the hard work of actually understanding.
So how do you manage it? 3 simple steps. First, when a cool new idea strikes, don't follow it. Just write it down on a quarantine list to check out later. Second, time box it. Give yourself a set amount of time, say an hour on Friday afternoon, to explore those quarantined ideas. And third, try the 80-20 rule. Spend 80% of your time on your core project, but allow yourself that other 20% for a fun, high-risk side project. This keeps your curiosity alive without completely derailing your thesis.
We've covered competence and autonomy, so now it's time for the final piece of the motivation puzzle, relatedness. A PhD can be so incredibly isolating, and that isolation is just toxic to passion. You have to actively build your network of support.
You know, what's so interesting about this quote is the totally unexpected source of motivation it reveals. Mentoring someone more junior than you forces you to explain the basics, to go back to square one. And in doing that, you remember the fundamental coolness of your own work, that you're solving a puzzle nobody has ever solved before. It makes you feel like an expert and just totally reignites that initial spark.
And this idea of relatedness comes in 2 really crucial forms. Your peers, they provide validation. They're the ones who just get it. They can normalize your struggles with things like imposter syndrome and reduce that feeling of being all alone. But then your formal mentors, they provide structure and guidance. They're the ones who help you see the big picture and navigate those inevitable dead ends. You absolutely need both to thrive.
So, let's bring it all together. If you're sitting around waiting for some lightning bolt of inspiration to strike you, well, you're going to be waiting a very long time. Real, lasting passion isn't a flash in the pan. It's an accumulation. It's the slow and steady buildup of all those micro-victories, those small skills you've mastered, and those human connections you've made along the way.
So, for the rest of your PhD, I want you to forget about finding your passion. Instead, focus on building it, and you can start today. Ask yourself this. What's one micro-victory, one small win you can achieve in the next couple of hours to get that motivation cycle turning? Because that, right there, is where passion truly begins.